Hey everyone, it's Stephanie from My Porch Prints, and today we are going to be trying to make a journal cover. And we have these new scrappy papers that we've come out with recently, and it's just a collection of 6 papers, and they all have the same kind of color scheme and theme. And in the listing photos for this, we use this stock image of journals, and we have this one, we have a couple other ones as well. But a lot of you have said, wow, I love the look of that journal, how do I make it? Well, since this is a stock photo, we didn't actually make this image, but I would love to bring it to life for you guys and try to show you how you could look at an image like this and try to recreate it and make it your own. So today we are going to be trying to make a journal that looks like this one. And of course it won't look exactly like it, but what we're gonna do is see how we can substitute certain things that you might have on hand in your own home and make something similar with the same kind of look and feel. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so to begin making our journal cover, we're going to need some sort of sturdy like cardboard or something like that for the cover piece. And I have this chipboard, and I'll put a link down below to my Amazon influencer shop, and under the journal supplies you'll find a link to the chipboard we use. But if you don't have chipboard on hand, you could always use, you know, like a cereal box or something like that. And what I did was I took 2 pieces. They actually come pre-cut to this size, which is like 5.5 by 8.5. It's basically an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper cut in half. And what I did was I took a third one. I got these 2 and then I got another one, and I cut a 2-inch spine out of that piece using a blade knife. So I just, you know, measured 2 inches and cut, and that's how I got this spine. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these, and I'm going to wrap mine in butcher paper. And you can see on this image, you can't really tell what's behind here. You know, it's covered up by the pretty papers. So I'm just going to go ahead and try for a neutral kind of base. And I've got this craft paper or butcher paper, whatever you want to call it. It's just brown paper. But again, if you don't have this, you could print out a couple pieces of just regular paper, or you could use, you know, colored paper, or you could use a grocery sack, whatever you have on hand that would work for covering your journal cover. If you're old like me, you might remember being in school and having to do book covers. You know, you would take like a paper bag and cover your book, your textbook for school. And it's kind of the same idea. We're gonna go ahead and cover this up. And I know what you're thinking, why would I cover brown with brown? That's silly. But it is going to give us kind of a sturdy base and hold our spine and covers together. And that's what's going to make our book cover. So it makes sense in the end. And like I said, if you don't have brown paper, you know, you could always print something like these. But just keep in mind, you'd probably want it non-directional, because you will have to turn it the long way in order for it to be long enough to actually cover your chipboard. So let's go ahead and cover these up. Normally when I cover a journal cover, I want to get it really smooth and straight, but we're going to be covering most of this up, so if you have a few wrinkles, don't worry about it. I don't think they'll show. Alright, and we want to leave just a little gap between our spine and our cover so that we can kind of turn it and fold the page or the cover without it making a problem for us. And you may notice that my craft paper is not cut perfectly, you know, square and even. It's a little uneven actually, because I ripped it from a giant roll. So to even it out, I'm just going to, once I've got this all straight and glued, I'm going to go ahead and just trim up these edges just a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to start at the corners and pull those in and glue them down. And then once I do that, I'm going to go ahead and fold my sides. fold it just along these lines right here on either side of the spine. And this will become the cover of our journal. So as you can see, this photo is a little ambiguous as to what's going on the spine over here, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But this front cover, you can see, is our printable paper, the Roses in Script scrappy paper. And then behind it here are these funky little layers, and they look kind of like cardboard to me. And then there's this like kind of, I don't know what color I would call this, like a dusty rose or a brownish pink, you know? And it's kind of sticking out up here, and then there's some florals over here. So we're gonna try to create something like this. Now, it won't look exactly the same, but it should have a similar look or feel by the time we're done. So in order to get these kind of like curvy layered edges, what I'm going to be doing is using a Deckled edge cutter. And I've actually got the Tim Holtz Deckled cutter. Oops, it's got something stuck in it. And it will actually cut that Deckled edge for me. And again, it won't be exactly the same as the photo, but it will have the similar feel. And then I also have a Deckled edge ruler, and it kind of does the same thing. What you do is you put your paper on the edge and just kind of like tear along this, and it'll give it that uneven edge. And if you don't have either of these, you can just take the edge of your paper or whatever you're using, your cardstock, and just tear it, and you should get like an uneven edge that will kind of simulate the same look. So I've got this from the kit, and as you can see, it's the one that we used on the cover here. And so what I'm going to do is try to cut it in a similar fashion. And this is printed on cardstock to give it that kind of thickness. You can see the layers over here, they look kind of thicker than paper. So I went ahead and used cardstock for this, and I'm going to cut it to the size of my cover, and we'll see if we can get kind of a similar look. So my cover is 5.5 inches, or well, 8.5 by 5.5. And so I'm going to be cutting this to a similar size. And you can see it's giving it that sort of deckled edge. And then from there, I'm going to go ahead and just measure using my ruler here. I'm going to measure 5.5 inches across. And I think this is right. I don't think I shortened this or anything. Let's just double check. So yeah, you can see that this is 5.5 inches. And so I'm actually going to cut this just slightly shorter because in the picture, it's actually inset from the cover just a little bit. Go for 5.25. And I'm just going to measure twice here to 5.25, and that'll give me 2 marks that I can line up. Okay, and I think that works pretty good. Okay, so when I look at these underlayers, they remind me a lot of just plain old cardboard. They have that kind of, you know, brownish gray look, and they're really not very decorated. So in order to get that look, I decided to cut up a cereal box. Cheerios, we love Cheerios. And I'm going to just cut it again to a similar size as this, but a little bit bigger because it needs to show up behind that layer. So I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger. And we're gonna see if we can get that kind of layered look. And again, if you don't have a decal cutter, just, you know, you can tear with your fingers and try to get the same look. Again, it won't look exactly the same, but that's okay. I think when you're looking at other people's work, it's a good idea to say, I like that, I wanna make something similar, but not try to make it exactly the same. You really should just put your own unique spin on it if you can. And I'm gonna go ahead and just cut this because it's not gonna fit in here unless I do. Okay, and then I want a little bit sticking out over on this end as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of mark like a 1/4 inch past the edge of my paper. See how this looks on our cover. All right, I can see that this is going to stick off the edge of our cover too much, and I wouldn't mind, I would just let it happen, except that when we open our cover, we're gonna see Yellow Cheerios box. So I wanna make sure that that fits inside the cover area. And I'm not worried about making this like perfectly square. I kind of like the way that it sticks out past the edges because that's kind of the way that this does as well. I think I'm actually going to put in one more layer because you can see there are actually a lot of layers over here. And I'm probably not going to do as many as are shown here, but I want at least a couple behind this. So I'm going to go ahead and probably do one more and trim this down again. Okay, again, it's not perfectly the same, but I think it's giving us kind of a similar vibe. So we're gonna go ahead and go with these layers. And if you wanted to bring out the layer a little more, you could use some distress ink along the edges, and that might give it more of a layered look. I may try that, even though it doesn't have it in this picture. We'll just see. Okay, so we're just gonna set these cover pieces aside for a minute, and we're gonna take a look at our example again. And we're gonna go ahead and try to cover our journal cover with this sort of dusty rose. I don't know what to call it exactly. It's got kind of a vintage look and a little bit of a torn look. And we're gonna try to simulate that a little bit. Now, obviously it won't be exactly the same, but we'll see what we can do. So I've got a piece of cream colored cardstock here, and I'm going to try to make it just kind of a little bit bigger than my front cover of my journal. So this will be the front cover. And I'm going to cut it so that it's slightly larger. And if you don't have cream colored cardstock, you can use regular cardstock, you can use, you know, just anything that you think you can make to simulate that kind of dusty rose vintage piece on the cover. So I think of that color as sort of a kind of pink tinged brown or a brown tinged pink, whatever you want to call it. And so I'm going to try to get that color by using some distress ink. And I've got Vintage Photo and Aged Mahogany. Now, if you don't have these colors of distress ink, again, you could try just coloring a piece of craft paper, or you could try using, you know, a scrap of paper or some, you know, paint, whatever you have on hand that you think might work. And maybe you just want to use a piece of lace there instead, you know, if that works better for you, go for that. So I'm going to start by just using a little of this Aged Mahogany, and it's going to give it that kind of pink tone that I'm looking for. Let me see, how far in am I going to need to go here? Okay, quite a ways. So I'm going to just mark on here really quickly. And I might actually trim this bottom edge because I can tell it's going to be a little bit long. So I'm lining the edge of my cover up with the edge of my cardstock right here. And I'm just seeing where I need to put pink so that it won't show, you know, so that it'll line up with the edge. And I keep losing my tools. Where's my pencil? Here it is. So I need to go kind of like right here, right here. There we go. That gives me an idea of where I can stop inking. And I think it's okay to have it darker in spots and lighter in spots. I'm not looking for anything even. I'm looking for a vintage kind of look. And if the screen's getting brighter, it's because the sun's coming out. We've had clouds all day today, and now we finally have a little bit of sunshine. And I'm gonna go ahead and do this edge as well, just in case it ends up showing for some reason. And then I want it to get more of an aged brown look, so I'm gonna use this Vintage Photo. And I'm not loving how my blotter is making circle shapes, but I think we'll be able to kind of hide that once we cut this off. So now, again, we're just going to try to go for this sort of look. And you can see there's these little white dots here. And to me, that makes me think of this pattern on my edge trimmer. And I'll put a link down below to some of the things that I use. If you go to my Amazon influencer shop, you'll probably find a link for this. And it's not exactly the same as the photo, but I think it'll give us a similar vibe. So I'm gonna go ahead and give that a try. And to use this, I'm just going to line it up with this pattern on the edge here. And just keep sliding it down and lining it up and punching. Okay, let's see how we like this. Okay, so here's our example again, and we're gonna go ahead and try to make the front cover part. But before we do that, we're gonna need to do this spine, because as you can see, there's some string on the spine that kind of wraps around under the cover. So let's go ahead and move on to that part. Okay, so the spine here is really hard to see. It's in the shadow. You can see that there's some layers here, some kind of brown and maybe pink pieces. It's really kind of dark and hard to see. So what I'm going to try to do is just simulate this look. It's kind of like messy layers and it's different textures. What looks like maybe crepe or leather, or this even looks kind of like a leaf. And then there's what looks like maybe some fabric or torn craft paper. And then under here, it looks like it could even be a little bit of lace. So we're just going to go for kind of a dark layered look on the spine like this. So to get this kind of layered, textured look, I've just got some different things. This is some just packing material that came with an order that we placed from a gift company. And then this is actually some of the paper from the kit that I've just heavily distressed using ink. This is just some torn craft paper that I've also added some ink to, and I might ink that a little more, and same thing here. And then we've also got some fabric that I thought we could like distress or play with a little bit. And then I've also got some lace that I thought might help add texture. So we're just gonna decorate this spine and try to give it some texture. And then as you can see, it looks almost kind of like the string is like wrapped around the spine and kind of holding it together. So I'm going to try to leave some pieces loose and lift it up and then give it that kind of wrapped look with the string. So let's go ahead and just work with some textures and layers on the spine. Go ahead and just ink the edges of my journal cover to give it some distressed look, so that if it shows through, it also has that kind of like old vintage look. Okay, so everything's distressed and we've got gathered some textures and things. Let's go ahead and put it together. And you can see I'm putting the glue to the inside a little bit, and I'm going to curve up the edges just a little. I probably should have inked on this side as well, but that will give it just a little bit of a, you know, kind of vintagey look. And I think when my glue dries, I may just ink these edges up a little bit. Okay, so not exactly the same, but you can see we're getting that kind of layered, grungy look. And now we're gonna go ahead and add our strings. So you may not have string on hand. You may have, you know, ribbon or lace or thread or just anything that kind of can work for this. I just happen to have this string and I think it'll work pretty nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this on. I'm gonna quit fighting myself on this and give myself some strips to hold this in place. I think it'll be easier. So now we can work on our front cover. And keep in mind that whatever hangs over it will show from the other side. And I don't think I mind this being cream colored on the other side, but if it's white, you may want to distress it a little bit. In fact, I may go ahead and just distress it a little anyway. So this is going to be the front of our book. And I'm going to go ahead and line this up with the bottom and the side so that these pieces hang over. And then next will come our other layers, and again we could distress these if we wanted to, and I think I will go ahead and do that. It will look a little different from the photo, but I think I'll enjoy it.
Hey everyone, this is Kyra coming to you from the editing room. I just wanted to let you know, you might have noticed that the edges of that kind of like lacy paper edge there got a little bit darker. Stephanie actually added some more of that like vintage photo distress ink to the edges just to darken them a bit, and she forgot to film it, so just letting you know you're not crazy. They definitely did get darker, so if you like that look, you might want to go ahead and grab your ink and just ink those edges again, just try to darken them up a bit.
Okay, and our photo does not show the back cover, so we just have to kind of guess what that would look like, and I think it would probably match the front cover, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And you can see I'm just turning up the edges a little bit after distressing on both sides, and I think it'll give it kind of a look to match the spine a little bit. And it looks like some of these papers might show just a little, so I'm going to grunge those up a little bit. You could always put another layer down to kind of cover this first and then add this layer if you want to. Okay, and while that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and cover this. Now, if you were going to put your pages in, you would probably want to put your hidden spine piece, if you're doing a hidden spine, and put your pages in. So actually, I think I will wait to cover this in case I want to add pages to this. But what I would probably do is take another paper from the kit and cut it in half. And then I'd probably round the corners. And I would set it inside here and inside here on these sides. And that would help cover up this brown paper. So we may add pages in a later video. We'll just have to see. But for now, let's go ahead and finish our cover. Okay, so our journal's coming together, our journal cover, and the last thing in our inspiration photo is these kind of crepe looking or paper looking flowers. Now, I don't have flowers like that, but again, we don't have to be exact. We can just kind of emulate what we see here. So I'm going to use some chiffon and paper flowers that I have. And we'll just kind of go for that kind of floral look up in this top corner. Takes a lot of glue because this fabric likes to soak it up. Okay, so let's see how we did. This is our journal cover, and this is the inspiration photo. I don't know if you can see both of those, but I think we did pretty good. It's not perfect, but it certainly does capture the spirit, I think, of the look of this journal. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and I really appreciate you watching our channel. Please leave a comment below and let us know what you think of this and if you think you'll try it yourself, and we will see you next time.